I am going to be adding darker areas to the purple grapes on this glass painting project. Here I have just one coat of the amethyst purple in the PBO porcelain 150 glass paint. Here I have started to turn that a little bit. I have started to add, get in focus. There we go. I've started to add shading. And I might be able to do this in just one coat, I'm not sure. But basically, purple is so dark by itself that you can do most of the shading in purple. I did do a little black outline and shading, but I leave the single coat where I want the highlights, and then I put another coat where I want the shadows, and you have to sort of dab the paint on because it doesn't really stick to the glass that well when it's wet. Put it in the shadows and dab it a little lighter in the light areas. Another way to do it is to put the purple kind of the thick coat all over, and then brush off with a dry brush, brush off the extra like that. That's another technique you can use. But I want a little bit more of a softer transition between the, there we go, that's better. A softer transition between the shadow and the light. So I try to kind of blend it like that. Let's see if I can get you to get a close up and focus. There you go, you can see. So it helps make it look more dimensional. And I finally decided to do this with a jug tipped on its side so you could get a better view. But in order to do that, I can't have just painted on the other side. So this is my first bunch of grapes that I'm painting. And after I put this purple on, then I'm going to add some shading to the branches and leaves. So I'll give you examples of all of those together before I start painting the other side. Because once I start painting all the way around, which is the way I normally do it, I can't have it held up and resting on its side like this. I just end up tipping it and holding it with one hand. Okay, let's see if we can get that in focus for you. You're in focus. Okay. There. Blend it. Okay, and then I'll show you the other shadowing on the branches and leaves next. Okay, now I am adding plain anthracite black to shade the branches. And you have to get in focus here. Hold on. See if you can get a good look at that, what I'm doing. That would be in focus. It's really hard for the camera to focus on the glass, and it's really hard for our eyes to focus on the glass, really, because you can see through it, which makes it difficult. So you kind of dab it on as opposed to brushing it on. And again, depending on how thickly I apply it, it might take a couple of coats. Can you see that? I'm not sure you can see that. Let me try to tilt that. Hold on a second. And think I need something to hold it up on the other side too. Okay, get back and get it in focus. I need it angled so I can see what I'm doing. Okay. It's almost like I'm dripping the paint into the position that I want it. Can you see that shiny black line? And this is anthracite black is a translucent black in the PBO glass paint line. So you can see the other colors through it, like in this case the brown. So layering is one way of sort of visually mixing your paints on your canvas, glass, whatever. Okay, it's a little dark and hard to see. But basically the idea is to put it in where the crevices are, to make them look recessed, and where the crevices would be, because it's not real, it's just an image, and give the illusion of a three-dimensional object. Okay, let's see if I can get a better angle. Okay. And I'll probably be going over this at least one more time to make the shading a little more rounded as opposed to just like a hard line at the edge. Kind of dabbing it on. And when I get all these little crevices or these little spaces, focus, there we go, all these little spaces like here between the leaf and the branch to end up being filled in so it's like one picture and not like a stencil or something like that. Everything to mesh together. And I'm going to put a little of the solid black to outline leaves as well. So on the shady parts of the leaves, I'll show you that. Leaves in the branches. And I expect that I'll be going back on the leaves with a mixture of black and the green also, or with a lighter, like a thin coat of black on parts of it to shade, because again you can see through the black. These are all translucent paints. Of course, the more thickly you apply them, the less translucent they are, the more opaque they are. But you can kind of see, I think, on the leaf a little bit better how I'm creating a sort of appearance of shadows and dimensionality, a three-dimensionality. It's a little time consuming because you can't just brush it on there, because it won't pool up very thickly. If you just do like brushing it on, it'll be very thin. And if you want it to really show up without having to put on a zillion layers, then you're going to have to kind of set your paint on there, a little almost like putting droplets on the surface of a glass. And you can also, blend your edges or remove some to soften the edge, kind of smear it around, because I don't want a super hard edge on the leaf. Or a super thick edge. Now this one I think would have a little bit more of a, oh, okay, let's get it in focus. Focus. There we go. I'm trying to see. No, focus. There we go. Sort of. I want maybe a little bit harder edge there. I think that would be a little bit more of a deep shadow there. And on this one as well, I think it would be a little bit darker. So the rest of this section of painting, part of the painting, is going to be going around everything, all the brown and green parts with the black, and the grapes with a little bit more purple. And that's the end of this segment.